Hello everybody, this is Patrik Antonius. I'm about to play 2-4 PLO at Full Tilt Poker. Looks like it's a good game for me since it's 5-handed at the moment. The one person is sitting out and everybody else has a lot of money for the blinds, except the one guy who's just on my left, one before my left who just raised. So it's good to have the short stacks behind you, and if they ever decide to move all in, other persons are first to act. They have to make the decisions, and then you might be able to do some good check raises and build big side pots when you have big hands. Because many times there's going to be situations that the short stack is, you just know he's going to go all in on the flop. He's last if he has like 70% or something left, and it's I have the best position in this table for sure. He beat me on the first hand. He looks like he hit a 2-outer there, and it's a good game. I like that people are buying in for bigger. It's a lot of money to play 400 for 2-4 blinds. It's definitely not short stack game. I follow my 3-9-10 king. I don't like to play out of position a lot of hands in PLO. I think I play way more tighter than a lot of players, and position means a lot in this game. And basically any 4 cards are okay to play if you have a position on someone, especially if you know they have big hands like aces, and you know that 2 pairs gonna be good many times. It's worth for calling a lot of times. But out of position is you need to play way tighter in this game. Yeah, here these coins are gold. He obviously had a big hand. He re-raised from the small blind, and I like to do re-raising too, even if I'm out of position in this game, with all kind of cards without aces. Aces I don't really like to do it because people usually put them to those cards, and there's nothing surprising then. And I usually, if I enter the pot when I'm not in a blind, like here, I usually open with the raising the pot. But this is, in fact, this is a hand that I could limp. I like to limp with the hands like when I have a pocket pair with also a possible ace-high flush. It's a nice hand. Many times, not many times, but sometimes you can flop an 8 with 2 spades, and suddenly I have a set with a flush draw. And I'm gonna check the flop because other player has no outs, so then he has my beat. Now he might have a 1-outer for straight flush, but I'm not really interested of betting for any kind of value. I don't think he's gonna call me with any worse. And now this bet, like, it looks like he's gonna have jacks or queens, or then he has nothing. But I'm interested to see the 9s. He made a good bet there, half a pot, a little bit more. It's hard for me to fold. I get 3-1 for the call. So, and it's information. First hand I play with these guys. This is when I look at this hand first thing I see is trouble. Many times if you make a king-high flush, it's I'm just still gonna call, but king-high flushes are bad. It's like same as you have ace-queen. A lot of people are losing a lot of money with ace-queen in Hold'em, no limit Hold'em, because many times the money goes in and they're against ace-king. In this case, many times when there's money going in, when there's flush, they have the ace-high flush. It just looks pretty that you have the second highest flush, but it's really nothing better than, it's like the same as you to have a 7-high flush. Doesn't really in ring games people start with pretty good starting hands. They start with big pocket pairs. They start with ace-high, ace-suited hands they start with hands, they're trying to make straights like 5, 7, 8, 9, or heads up is different, and like 3-handed, then you have to play those hands. Then king high flush becomes much stronger than in a 6-handed game. And if you select your starting hands in ring games, good, so you avoid the first trouble, that you don't get in, like you don't call with deuce deuce 5 6 or something, because now the flop would come deuce 7 queen, and if there's going to be more action, you're going to be against, many times you're going to be against, I'm going to call here just because I have 2 pair in a hand. It's a big possibility that to hit a set, and I'm investing $30 to see if I can flop something. But many times if the deuce 7 queen flop comes and you have a set of deuces, you're gonna be against the bigger set, and then you have one outer, then or you're against top 2 pair, and I'm still forced to call. I have to call this to see if I flop anything, and now I just have to give it up. I have 4 outs, and even if he would have ace king, queen jack, which is like the worst hand I would put him on, still like he would have a lot of outs. So I have to call. It's a pot size bet. I have 8-8 3-3, and it's a hand that I'm gonna hit the flop. I'm gonna hit it. How many times? If you have 1 pair, you flop 1 out of 9 times or something a set. So I'm gonna flop 1 out of 4 times or 1 out a set, and then I pretty much I can have him drawing pretty much dead for 2 out or something, and I might flop a flush draw, and then I have to put the rest of the money in, which would be sometimes bad if I'm against bigger flush draws, but it's just Omaha. You have to make calls even if you know you don't have the best that many times, because there's no hands which dominate some other hands like very big time, that you would be like 20-80 dog or something. Usually the hands pre-flop, if you just go all in against just any random hands against aces, are like just 4 cards with no pair, they're like 40% or something. It's not a big deal if you crack aces in Omaha, and it's a lot. So it's just this game. I think the biggest mistakes that people make is when they make their second and third nuts. When you make a third nut straight or second nut straight, you don't really wanna build a big pot. You're gonna be against the nuts. Just this is a how would I explain? There are a lot of players who make decent money playing PLO, and they basically never bluff, because their starting hand selection is so good, and they play very disciplined, and they don't go crazy on the flops, and you can do pretty good in that way too. But I like to play PLO in very deep stack and short-handed, which forces you to play worse hands. Otherwise, you're gonna get run over, because you can't just fold and call and fold if you don't hit anything. And then the interesting thing in this game is that the board changes all the time. If the flop comes like 5, 8, 10 with 2 diamonds, there's basically no blanks. There's deuce and 3, and deuce and 3 are the blanks, which, if they're not flush cards, which don't change the board on a turn. Always comes a card which gives a straight possibility of flush or overcard, or someone's gonna make bigger 2 pair or a set. So it's interesting. You have to put people in certain hands and think there's a lot of bluffing involved, and that's why the position is so important, because you always see what the other person is doing first, and you can't really protect your hand in the same way as in Hold'em in this game, because there are so many it's like there's no hands dominates other hands so big time. Just that's why it's usually I usually bet the pot or almost the pot every time. I don't like any bets like half a pot in this game since there's so many scary cards always. Like this doesn't get any better, this flop for this hand. And now they have, I would say they have no outs. And I just want to keep them in. And I want to make this bet for $12. I wish some of these guys would just think that I'm weak here, and they might even try to bluff me or make just call with nothing and bluff me later. And he didn't bet the flop, so I think he should not have a full house here. And I'm not really interested of check raising here because it's still possible he has a full house. And let's try to bet 32 here. If he calls with like a 9 high flush or so. I could have there let me bluff too. I don't know, because I have never played with the player before. And some of the high stakes players, I think if I would have checked there, and some of the players, if they would have like a 6 high flush, they might even try to bluff me, get me lay down a king or queen high flush there, since the board paired. But it's very rarely happens too, because there's not really I don't really have too much respect. I just bet the turn. So I can have just many times I have nothing there. He can have anything like I do. He can have nothing, no pair, no draw. And he can just call me to bluff me later. And now when I bet the river, he just gave it up. But normally I think he had a small flush. That's what I think, because he didn't have a set or 2 pair. He could have had 2 pair, which. And he didn't make the full house, and maybe he had a straight jack queen. This hand I limped here. This is one of the hands that, if I hit a 4-6, for example, it's a big straight draw, and I have the ace high suited there as well. So I like to see flops with those hands for cheap sometimes, and. But I usually raise pot before the flop. I like to play bigger pots on a position, and many times people behind you they fold, and suddenly you have the button. If you limp, there's usually people behind you limping too, and it just makes things much more simple when you open with the raise and people fold behind you. And usually if the blind calls or blinds or 2 people calls you, and maybe there's a guy who limped before you who calls you as well, and they usually check flops to you. I would say it's more often than people just check than bet out the flops. So then you can make decisions to take free cards, or you can try to bluff in certain flops, and you can sometimes slow play hands, and you can do a lot of things. This I'm definitely gonna check, and I'm not folding this so far. And I want to bet the turn. I don't want him to draw for anything. If he has kings, there's still a queen, or maybe he had a flush draw. He could have easily take a free card there with like a king high flush draw, and he could have had a straight draw as well. I raised this hand only because I had the button. If I would see the one before the button, I would fold this hand. But this case, the position is so important that I think it's a winning play, averagely, to play that hand. In this hand, if I would have the ace high suited, I would play. I would probably limp and try to hit something. But the small pairs are a lot of trouble in ring games, since many times, as I explained before, if the flop would come like, let's say the flop would come 6-10 queen, and you started your hand with 6-6-5-4. Now you have the set of sixes. If you're gonna bet the flop and you get raised or something, you have a situation that which you're not gonna like it. You're gonna be against top set or middle set, or you're gonna be against the straight draw and flush draw, which is even many times a favor against your set, or the only case that you're gonna be in very good shape that the person has like top two or top pair with the opener straight draw, and it's a lot of trouble. You don't want to be drawing for 1 out or be still a dog in a flip when you're against straight draw and flush draw. So the small pairs I like to play them slow. I don't if someone bets the flops, queen, 10-6 flops, I like to call many times, and many times you save money if you're against the top set, because now the flush or straight card hits, and suddenly the turn goes check check, and then the river might go check check, and then if the board pairs and the guy had the straight draw or flush draw, then they keep bluffing you, and you get money more like that, but that's when the position again plays a big part, that you can decide what to do later. Like this hand, I like this double suited hands a little bit more than I should, and I think if I would really play my best, I would fold this hand pre-flop. But anyways, I raise and only big blind call, and I like to bet this flop. It's kind of a good flop for a hand like that, just to, you're gonna buy it maybe 80% of the time or 90%. If they don't have a queen, they fold many times, and they're very it's very small chance that they would have aces, which they would call as well, and maybe jacks they could call, and of course sometimes they just check raise bluff you with nothing, but I also like to do the same as Gus likes to do in PLO. I like to bet out a lot of flops, since people check like small blind, big blind, they just check for the original eraser a lot, so they give him a chance to take a lot of free cards. And sometimes I bet with nothing on the flops just to try to buy them, and sometimes when I flop top sets or middle sets or top twos, I like to bet them too, because I don't want to take any free cards for opener straight draw or flush draws, and because if you raise before the flop and you get callers, and you don't want to bet those flops when people check to you when you have like a bad pair with like a queen high flush draw, or if you have like an opener straight draw, because if you're gonna bet the flop and you get raised, you can't call. You don't want to when you can't call the raise. Like sometimes there's situations on a turn that when you have the nut flush draw, but you don't want to bet it, because if the guy's going to raise you a pot, then you have to fold it. So many times it's nice to just take a free card and make the hand that way, and play it slowly. It's many times when you have draws, but they're not as big as you can call pot size bets with those. I would recommend taking free cards and give yourself chance like that. And if you're interested of buying a lot of pots and bluffing, you can still bluff later maybe.